I think I remember this, he masturbated twice and spit in his hand or something. I thought it memorable too for a way of describing human genesis. Yeah, it stuck with me. That whole thing was Surah, the story or dialogue between Thoth and Isis. I don't remember much of it to be honest. I only remember broken parts myself. What struck me was the sense of loneliness. Maybe not, I'm not sure, but it was almost like that section about the masturbation. The narrator was describing not knowing what happened, and a lot of the rest of it not knowing what to do. Later Thoth talking like the concerns and sorrow of Isis were met with a descriptive outcome she wasn't aware of. You mean the time thing? I mean different aspects of ourselves. It kind of describes it, but the difference is the certainty of Thoth. Like he had already been there and it had already happened. So was Thoth and Isis what came out of the masturbation episode? I haven't studied that much. I remember Shu and Geb. Sometimes it's Atom, sometimes it's Petar. There's a lot of slippiness to placement, but there is a consistency to the dialogue. I think Thoth and Isis are from Osiris. Osiris may be from Geb, I can't remember, but Thoth and Isis I think were brother and sister. There's the story of them guiding the boat of Ra. Other times it's Horus. It can be frustrating if you're just trying to find a definitive narrative because the stories kept changing over time, coming out from different directions. Interesting, I didn't know you knew that much about it. Not really anything, barely a skeptic, much less an expert. So the idea of containment is the mystery for mind, if you think of it as a sensationally formed or forming apparatus. I would wonder though if expanse and condensation could be a forming orientation to the momentum. If it was quantificational as an experience of expression, it could just be creating space where nothing existed before, like two wall mirrors facing each other. The trick for us, I think, from how you're explaining it, is whether we are experiencing expanse or condensation. That's a good pickup. I think what I'm trying to hone in on is whether light or energy is expressive as mind with sensation by itself, in a way that lacks an understanding of its own presence. If light experiences sensation with analytical processing. Yes. To what extent is it able to consider anything from that perspective, or was there any limit to the expression? I feel like the different options, the body suits, the progress paths, it's just a distortion like an element filter, a lightning rod, water over pyramids, something like that. Forget about the complication of no apparatus of sensation for a second, and think about how light is filtered in our body suits. How crappy we can feel without sunlight, etc. We seem more closely related to perennials than animals in terms of our natural vulnerabilities. Winter for a human is death without the use of mind for a solution. This seems to me unusual, if not unnatural, for a long line evolving articulation. An evolving product that is formed by those same cycles of nature. We literally start wearing the skins of other animals. Answers to the gap of instinct in our natures, forced by sensation to commit a resolution where not knowing what to do has become the problem, in a way no other animal is exposed to. If we weren't being forced by design or accident to confront the sensation of not knowing what to do, we could seem like refugees on a foreign planet in terms of our chances of surviving any environment for long if truly naked and alone, not just as kids but fully grown adults. Vitally unprepared for certain aspects of the recurring cycles, more suited for others. Migrating from an equatorial plane could explain it, being created separate from the animals could explain it, but what would explain the gap in our memory? We have teeth but no natural capacity to chase anything down, lack the strength to overpower any animal larger than a rabbit that we would want to eat. I wonder, considering the age of the Earth, if we didn't evolve in a completely different planet whole condition, and then a sudden change found us chasing around survival on the end of a stick. We didn't die off because of mind as a solution, but what explains mind as a solution? The idea that cavemen, whether Cro-Magnon or humanoid, evolved to a naturally unprepared state for the environments they came from seems ludicrous. They seem in a way in that condition to be trying to survive, and that alone seems behind the frame and so unnatural. We don't fit into the natural cycles of an ecosystem without mind as a solution, even as cavemen or Plains Indians, but instead create them, insert ourselves in them, warp them, dominate them and enslave them. Our expressions of dread for life, our insecurities, our fears for almost everything in nature certainly arise from such natural vulnerabilities. Our intuitions gear solutions around the sensations of appetite and display, and as clever as we think we are, considering how foreign and unsuited we are for our environments, I wonder about an initiating will external to the human mind playing into our survival. How civilization has survived the ability to destroy ourselves in multiple ways and hundreds of times over, with the push of a button or release of a trigger. An initiating mind as will beyond ourselves. What would be the purpose of that engagement? Do they seek something in us we don't see in ourselves? We have such a tremendous capacity to experience so many things, learn so many things, the opportunity to excel in exceptional ways from places where we were embarrassingly terrible to start with. Yet we do what we have to do so we can finally do nothing from a hill. Like that's the goal, the good life, the exasperated sensation of a tourist waiting for a shuttle. I read in the New York Times travel section how to do nothing nowhere. Nothing is everything kind of mentalize. I was thinking about what you said about transition, destabilizing the scales of distribution, destabilizing a settled equilibrium. It takes time for people to process and we have to be sensitive of the feelings, but think about maybe the difference in how Edison would react to Tesla and if it were instead Ben Franklin. Franklin draws a diagram of likely outcomes for a form of harnessing electricity, and Tesla comes the next day with alternating currents for everyone, and an X-ray machine. Franklin would have kissed him, I'm almost sure of it, for making him look so foolish. Franklin wasn't invested. If he would have come into his printing office with a laptop for everyone and the internet, it might have been different. That's a good point. I still don't think so. It's one thing to be a little disappointed you've been outdone, it's something else to kill an elephant. I think Tesla was the same way. If someone would have come along with a way to harvest magnetic currents to generate electricity with no money in it for anyone besides the initial production of the filtering agent, he would have been happy for the experience. A little disappointed but happy, maybe even inspired. What's next? People like that are just different. Franklin was off the charts with the amount of things he invented and excelled at, so was Tesla. I get what you're saying, Faust. Socrates, for them it was competition to challenge the thought, the performance, and disappointment didn't mean it wasn't inspiring, not just a destruction to the best investment. Maybe you're trying to hypothesize or just find an explanation in the differing natures of reaction. Great artists being inspired by other artists is one reaction, others might react to the stimulus as someone moving in on the territory, taking over their industry. You could kind of relate that to a condensational contextualizing of the data stream coming in. Condensation would externalize sensation, location would be implied in the arrangement. Expanse would be more like ballasting, how you put it, it would be a place but not a location. That's a hard concept. For Tesla or someone like Faust or Socrates, it would inspire them to greater heights themselves, not mean just a loss or a concession for having to start again once they thought something else would happen. Set for life the way they had it, if it wasn't for this other thing. S. Those meddling geniuses. The most dangerous when they start viewing performance as a contrast. I think they are okay with it when it is viewed as just an expenditure of energy. In that sense, an artist could have a hard time knowing how to please them when not performing. I was thinking of the pyramid as a vortex structure. As a way to achieve momentum one way or the other. In a way, the initial momentum creates a perpetual motion, sort of like an object without an atmosphere. I was thinking of the area around a pyramid as a tensive energetics that provides tensive lean against the walls and enforces all momentums, a neutral form of energy tensively configured for the draft or the draw as an initiating reference to the momentum. It's possible that this is how mind works as well. There is a lack of understanding for the quantification reference. On an initiating updraft, the casket would still fall to the bottom, but it would now be to a point instead of center of the base. I think this is when we have to walk back up, so to speak, to where our feet will reach the former eye-level perspective. It's the idea of a snake's perspective of the horizon, the object in mind or view, and someone standing next to it with a broader, contextual perspective. Much more capacity for movement and a multiplied frame for momentum. K. You mean people who are educated? S. Yeah, but I think I mean more like educated in momentum more than in specific content.